Welcome to the channel about unidentified flying object and an anomalous aerospace phenomenon scientifically. Today we will talk about such a natural phenomenon as the Baer Effect. There are quite a few eyewitness testimonies about the impact of unidentified flying objects on wildlife and non-animal nature, and testimonies of the impact on the ice of the river are no exception. Anatoly Evdokimovich, eyewitness story, the 7th of January 1990 from 8:50 to 9 o'clock saw a UFO hovering over the ice of the expansion of the Imza River near the dam, not far from the duck farm. At first, riding a bicycle from the forest, I saw a fire, but there was no smoke. I wondered if the reeds were on fire? But it was wet weather. I left from behind the dam and saw an object 15 meters in diameter, and 6 to 7 meters high above the ice in the area where the Imza River widened. After clarifying the size of the UFO with eyewitness, conducting work at the landing site, it was clarified that the clear diameter of the UFO was about 25 meters, about 7 meters high. The diameter of the trace on the ice from the UFO was 20.7 meters. The UFO looked like a children's toy top with a skirt at the bottom. The color of the object is similar to the color of a cloud at sunset, orange-red. From above, the UFO was like the bell of an old brand alarm clock, like a superstructure or a zonal part. Between the skirt and the main part of the UFO, there was a strip of gray or gray-blue color half a meter wide, in which, like waves, balls floated. The angular velocity was about 100 to 120 degrees per second. A white haze was visible under the UFO, as the object was above the ice at a height of 5 to 7 centimeters. There was no noise. After 10 to 15 minutes from the beginning of the observation, the UFO took off sharply vertically upwards to a height of 20 to 30 meters, somewhere in a second, hovered for a very short time, the same somewhere around a second, and quickly flew off over the crowns of trees toward the village of Kolesniki, to the southwest. The tops of the trees, when the UFO flew over them, swayed and 2 dry willows broke off. When flying away, the wind blew in my direction, and at the place where the UFO hovered in the ice, there was water in a round hole with a diameter of 15 meters. There was no fear during the observation process, as well as a desire to come closer. Later, I rode a bicycle toward the village of Timchenki, and the next day I rode along the dam to the place where the UFO descended into the meadow behind the trees. I saw the burnt grass there, although it was damp. In total, a meadow of 5 hectares burned out, and a stack of hay, which stood a little away from the meadow, also burned out. This surprised me very much since it was raining lightly, it was damp, and there was no dry grass at all. The next day, I also drove up to the place where the UFO hovered and saw that finely superimposed ice, like a snowball, was on our side, drank the circle, but the disk of ice that emerged after the UFO left, froze from the edges still weakly, and only after 2 to 3 days on the ice it was possible to step into the landing site. Since there was no examination of the authenticity of testimonies in those days, we cannot judge what exactly the eyewitness saw, and we cannot take the words for granted. But the circle on the ice, which Anatoly Evdokimovich specified, is clearly of natural origin. Such ice circles are explained by the combined action of the Coriolis inertial force and the friction force, which create a rotational movement of water masses around the axis of the channel, and cause the transfer of matter between the banks. The resulting pressure difference ensures the rotation of the fluid in a circle. Taking into account the Baer Effect, the rule according to which in the northern hemisphere, rivers flowing in any direction wash away the right bank, and in the southern hemisphere, the left. An increase in pressure with distance from the center of rotation plays the role of a centripetal force. The angular velocity of the fluid near the bottom decreases due to friction. The balance of forces is disturbed. There is a vertical circulation of the liquid. In the northern hemisphere of the Earth, counterclockwise, and in the southern hemisphere clockwise. In winter, the water temperature is close to zero, and near zero, the maximum density of water is reached at a temperature of +4. Namely, this water will rise from the bottom of the pit to the top and wash the lower surface of the ice, and the ice above the pit will melt. There are also floating round islands made of peat and vegetation. Nature never ceases to amaze us, for example, with the appearance of ice balls, which are formed during waves and temperatures just above the freezing point. Each piece of ice, instead of being soldered with others into a single ice field, turns into a growth point and becomes overgrown with layers, and the waves run around it and turn it into a more or less even ball. Such a ball can reach a meter in diameter. Ice flowers, which occur if the air temperature is below -20 degrees Celsius, and the ice surface is about 0 degrees Celsius, and besides, the weather is without wind, then a layer oversaturated with moisture forms at the very surface of the ice. This moisture, in contact with cold air, cools sharply and again condenses on the surface of the ice, but in the form of crystals. Pancake ice occurs when the air temperature is close to zero, then a snow porridge is formed on the surface of the water, consisting of granular snow, and when snow falls and the temperature drops, the snow porridge becomes overgrown with a snow shell, forms a snow slush, which, in the presence of wind, is divided into separate parts and freezes. Then the wind and ice water polish the formed ice floes, making the edges rounded and similar to pancakes. Phenomena exist, and no matter what a person thinks about them, all scientific discoveries are only an increase in the horizons of a person. Natural phenomena have always been. From birth, a person strives for knowledge of the world around him, and as a child is asked the question, why, an adult can do everything. The problem is only in resources and in the breadth of horizons. Leave comments, this will help promote the channel. Thank you all for your attention. Subscribe and press the bell. Well, we will be back soon with a new video.